What if the moment you decide to save your life, your brain continues to destroy itself? We have been told a comforting lie about addiction and recovery. The common narrative suggests that the moment you put down the glass, the damage stops. We believe that sobriety is an immediate turning point where healing begins on day one. But recent breakthrough data in neuroscience has exposed a terrifying glitch in human biology. Data from brain imaging studies reveals that alcohol-induced damage to the brain's white matter actually continues to progress weeks after you completely stop drinking. Your brain does not heal immediately when you sober up. In fact, during the first few weeks of total abstinence, the structural decay accelerates. In this video, we are going to deconstruct the hidden architecture of early sobriety. You will understand exactly why the first 6 weeks of breaking a habit feel like an emotional death trap, how your brain's wiring changes when the chemicals disappear, and most importantly, how you can navigate this dangerous transition phase to permanently rebuild the structural integrity of your mind. If you have ever tried to change your life only to find your anxiety, numbness, and mental fatigue getting worse, you are not failing. Your brain is simply caught in a hidden biological storm. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the brain's white matter. If the gray matter of your brain is the collection of individual computers, the white matter is the massive network of fiber optic cables connecting them. It is the infrastructure responsible for how fast you think, how well you process emotions, and how effectively you execute decisions. When you consume alcohol regularly, it acts as a neurotoxin, slowly degrading these vital communication pathways. But the real horror happens during early abstinence. When you remove alcohol from the system, the brain undergoes a massive inflammatory shock. The neurobiological equilibrium is completely shattered. According to recent clinical tracking, even after 6 full weeks of zero alcohol consumption, the degeneration of white matter pathways in the frontal lobe and corpus callosum continues to advance. This means that during your first month of trying to improve your mental health, your brain is actually becoming structurally weaker than it was when you were actively drinking. This is the ultimate biological deception. It explains why so many individuals experience intense relapses between week 2 and week 4. They expect clarity, but instead, they experience an architectural collapse of their emotional stability. This structural decay directly targets the prefrontal cortex, the seat of your willpower, logic, and emotional regulation. When this area is compromised, your ability to think long-term is temporarily disabled. You become highly reactive, chronically anxious, and uniquely vulnerable to emotional manipulation by your own subconscious mind. Simultaneously, you enter what psychologists call the dopamine debt. Alcohol artificially forces massive surges of dopamine into your system, setting a baseline that no natural human experience can match. When you sober up, your brain shuts down its natural dopamine production to protect itself. Suddenly, the external world loses its color. Accomplishing a goal, reading a book, or spending time with loved ones feels completely dull and numb. This is not a lack of motivation. It is a physiological deficit. Your brain's reward architecture has been flattened, leaving you in a state of chronic boredom and psychological vulnerability. During this phase, your mind will try to convince you that life without the vice is not worth living. It will amplify your morning anxiety, sabotage your sleep by blocking deep REM cycles, and trick you into believing that temporary relief is better than long-term freedom. But understanding this architecture is your greatest weapon. The progression of damage during abstinence is not permanent. It is a transitional clearing of the wreckage before the reconstruction can begin. To survive this phase and trigger genuine neuroplasticity, you must actively intervene in your brain's biological recovery. The first step is understanding that you cannot rely on willpower during the first 45 days. Because your prefrontal cortex is structurally compromised, your willpower is at its lowest capacity. Instead of relying on motivation, you must rely on strict environmental design. You must remove the necessity of choice. If you have to choose to be disciplined every single day, you will eventually lose. Build an environment where the bad habit is impossible to execute and the good habit is automatic. The second step is forcing the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as a biological fertilizer for your neural pathways. It is the exact chemical required to stop white matter decay and initiate the growth of new connections. You can trigger massive releases of BDNF through high-intensity cardiovascular exercise, cold exposure, and strict sleep optimization. Sleep is the only period when your brain activates its glymphatic system, a literal flushing mechanism that clears neurotoxic waste and repairs structural damage. Finally, you must accept the emotional numbness as a temporary architectural phase. The boredom you feel is not your new reality. It is the sound of your dopamine receptors recalibrating to the real world. Your mind is a complex structure, and like any great architecture, it cannot be remodeled without a period of chaos, dust, and instability. The pain you feel in the early stages of transformation is not a sign that you are broken. It is the evidence that the old foundation is being torn down to make room for something unshakable. Stop expecting immediate peace and start focusing on daily structural integrity. Protect your time, design your environment, and give your biology the time it needs to heal the deep pathways of your mind. If this deep dive into the architecture of human psychology resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and share this video with someone who needs to understand the silent battles of the mind. Stay observant and keep building.